pretty please, to Matthew chapter 27. You have a Bible that looks like this. It's going to be page 693. Matthew chapter 27. If you have a Bible that looks like this, it's going to be page 693. Now, today I'm going to begin a series of sermons. And starting today, I'm going to go through Easter. Looking at the last few days, looking at the last few hours of Jesus Christ's life. Normally, when we start this series of sermons, I started around a week or so before Christ's death, and we start talking about that full week. But in the last couple of years, as we've done that, by the time we get to Easter, it's like everybody's going, this is great, fantastic, wonderful, we've learned so much, now let's get on with something else. So we do. I switch. We go to different sermon series and whatever. So today, actually for the next couple of weeks, we're going to look at the last few hours of Christ's life, in particular, the effect or you want to say it differently, what happened right after the death and or resurrection of Jesus Christ. So we're going to kind of look at what happened after the death and burial and resurrection of Christ, helping us understand some of the stuff that happened leading up to the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. So today we're going to be looking specifically at Jesus on the cross itself, and then even more specifically, what happened right after the cross. I want to go up to verse 48. We'll start there. 45, verse 45. Again, this is Jesus on the cross. From the 6th hour until the 9th hour, darkness came over all the land. And about the 9th hour, Jesus cried out in a loud voice, Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani, which is to say, my God, why have you forsaken me? When some of those standing there heard this, they said, he's calling Elijah. Immediately one of them ran and got a sponge. He filled it with wine vinegar, put it on a stick, and offered it to Jesus to drink. The rest said, let's leave him alone, and let's see if Elijah really does come to save him. When Jesus had cried out again in a loud voice, he gave up his spirit. At that moment, the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. The earth shook. The rocks split. The tombs broke open. The bodies of many holy people who had died were raised to life. They came out of the tombs, and after Jesus' resurrection, they went into the holy city and appeared to many people. When the centurion and those with him who were guarding Jesus saw the earthquake and all that had happened, they were terrified and exclaimed, surely he was the Son of God. Far enough. Jesus Christ is on the cross. When you pick it up here in verse 45, there's so many things that have happened previous to that. He has been beaten, he has been scourged, he has been ridiculed. There has been this multitude of torturous events that have led up to the cross, and then on the cross itself. If you ever saw the Passion of the Christ, it's a very specific, very poignant act whenever they crucify him, and how they stretch the person's arm out, even yanking the shoulder out of socket to get the hand where they need it to be, so they can nail him to the cross. And as Jesus is up there, we have the phraseology of the people at the time, from the 6th hour to the 9th hour. What that explains is that when 12 noon our time to 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And you have to understand that what's going on here is that as Jesus is on the cross, Satan is using the people around him on the ground to continually tempt him. And as they're walking by, they are yelling abuse. They are yelling at him, and they are, among other things, saying, if you will just come off the cross, we'll believe in you. If you're the Son of God, if you can save all the people, then why don't you just save yourself? If you're so wonderful and high and mighty and so whatever, then why don't you save yourself from this horrible situation? If you'll just come off the cross, we'll believe in you. Now, God the Father will not stop the crucifixion. God the Father will not stop the people being idiots. God the Father will not silence them and stop the insults. But what you seem to have here is a change in nature where God the Father will cover his Son in darkness so that they stop what they're doing. So that the very people who at one time have been screaming and yelling and making fun of him are now running into trees, tripping over rocks, running into themselves, trying to figure out what's going on. And they understand that at high noon, it is now so pitch black that they can't see their hand here. There's a little bit of fear, a little bit of overwhelming, a little bit of unpreparedness, and it goes silent. Until Jesus Christ, around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, as the darkness is beginning to lift, Jesus will cry out, Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani, which is Aramaic, which translated says, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? Now, there's all kinds of debate about what he means whenever he says that, and that's for a whole other story. We've talked about that in sermons past and in Bible studies, but the thing I want you to catch is the response of the people. Because he cries out, Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani, and their response is, he's calling for Elijah to come and save him. And the question is, why would they say that? These people know Aramaic. They understand the language. So why would they cry out, let's wait and see if Elijah comes to rescue him? And while there's all kinds of debate and speculation and wonderment about what all happened, I think that the most simplistic answer I've ever heard makes the most sense. And you have to identify what Jesus went through. And I said it once and I want to say it again. They beat him to death and just short of it. Just short of death. Before he is put on the cross, he is scourged. And that is the event that would take most of the flesh off of his back. Before they do that, they will take him into the Roman Praetorium, and the Roman soldiers will make sport of him. They will shove a crown of thorns into his head, and every mother in this room understands how bloody a head wound is. They will shove a crown of thorns into his head. They will beat him with their fists. They will beat him with at least one rod, or at least one stick, maybe more, hitting that crown, literally driving it into his skull. They will rip out his beard hair by the handfuls. They will literally beat him just short of death. And then they'll take him out to kill him. So, after hanging on a cross for right at 6 hours, having been beaten within just an inch of your life, the explanation I heard that I thought, well, that makes the most sense, is that his mouth is swollen and he can't talk. And so whenever he says, Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani, some of the people hear it and understand it, but some of the people who maybe weren't paying that close attention and starts trying to figure out what he's saying, come to a conclusion that he's crying out for Elijah, because they think that, going back into the Old Testament folklore, that Elijah's going to come and rescue whatever. And so it's, let's stand back and see there's going to be some supernatural event. And even at that level, detracting from what Jesus Christ is offering. Elijah is not the Savior. Jesus is. And yet, even at that point, they don't understand that the Savior who is saving mankind, they're looking for Elijah to come and save him, which identifies just how little they did not understand anything that was unfolding in front of them. As he cries out, some of them say, let's stand back and watch and see if Elijah comes to find him and come to save him. Somebody goes and will get something, some wine vinegar for him, and they will put it on a sponge, stick it on a stick, and raise it up to him. And it's the only time that Jesus ever accepts any kind of help. They'll take a drink. Now, as Matthew identifies him, everybody's kind of standing around and watching, and Matthew says that he cries out with a loud voice and gives up his spirit. When we look at other gospel accounts, he will say two things. One, he will say, it is finished. The second thing he will say, Father, into thy hands I commit my spirit, and then he will stop. Now, this is another time, this is part of another sermon later on, but it's important to understand that Jesus never died. Jesus never became susceptible to death. Jesus rendered up his spirit whenever he had done all that he was supposed to do. Death did not take his spirit. Death did not overcome him. He did not lose the battle. He simply ceased to exist as he chose to do before, because he had offered the sacrifice perfectly as he had intended to. That is why he said to his dad, I'm done. And then he said, Dad, I'm going to give you my spirit now. And then he ceased breathing. Now, that in itself is incredible and fantastic and overwhelming, and that in itself, what I just covered in 10 minutes there, is enough for a 3 months Bible study. But what I want